This video will show you how to replace the front brake flex hose on a Mitsubishi Lancer. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Now once you've done that, you're going to remove all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts so we can get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, we have a clear view of our front brakes. We're going to be dealing with the caliper itself. Now looking along the back side of the caliper or on the inboard side, this is where you're going to find your bleeder screw. There may be a cover protecting this area. Go ahead and remove that cover and make sure you have a collection receptacle under this area. Just a quick inspection of that. On this caliper, I'm going to be using an 8mm. We're going to open this up and wait to see a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. Now that I can see fluid making its way out of here, I'm sure I do not have an issue with the bleeder screw. We're going to leave this open temporarily, make our way into the passenger compartment, and press the brake pedal down to the floor, and you can hold it there with something such as a pry bar if necessary. A quick note about this, the entire time you have that brake pedal pressed down, your brake lights are going to be on, which could potentially draw down your battery voltage. Just keep that in mind as we continue on. Now after you have that brake pedal down all the way to the floor, you're going to find that the fluid stops coming out of the bleeder screw. That's exactly what we want. Continue on to lightly snugging the bleeder screw for now. Now, continuing along the back side of the caliper, you can see just below where our bleeder screw is, we have the area where our flex hose connects to the caliper. There's a 14mm headed banjo bolt holding this in place. We'll start removing it. We have our collection receptacle under here. Fluid will make its way out. Now that is the fluid from inside of the caliper. It is not the fluid making its way down through the brake system from the master cylinder. Now we can disconnect that flex hose from the caliper. We're following the flex hose up to its mounting bracket. Now in this area here, the flex hose just slides out of position from the bracket itself. There really isn't much to do there. Of course, we're going to inspect that bracket and we'll continue on. Now at this mounting point, there's actually a small metal clip. We need to grab hold of it and pull it out of place. This would be done with pliers. Now there's our metal clip. You need to confirm it's not rotted and weak in any way. This is in good condition. We'll clean it up and set it aside. The flex hose should slide out of place now. Now we have one more mounting point all the way up along the body of the vehicle. Looking along the top of this mount, this is where the brake line leads into. There's a fitting. We're going to go ahead and clean this up. We can use a wire brush and some parts cleaner if necessary. Now I've cleaned the area and applied some penetrant. We're going to continue on with a 10mm flare end wrench. This is going to help us break it free without stripping the fitting on the brake line. There we are. Now you can see I have movement and the brake line is not twisting. If your fitting is stuck on the brake line and the brake line itself is twisting, it can cause a fluid restriction, which is going to be a brake issue. Now that I have that broken free, I can switch to an open end wrench. We'll continue on with the removal process of the line from the flex hose. Now we can see my brake line fitting has separated from the flex hose, so if you were to look at the bracket attached to the body of the vehicle, you can see that we have another one of those metal clips that we have to dislodge so we can separate the flex hose from that bracket. Keep in mind, this is the last thing holding the flex hose to the vehicle itself. Just going to hold on to that flex hose and we can remove that metal clip. We're using some pliers. There's our clip. And now we can remove that flex hose. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course we need to make sure we clean and inspect all mounting areas. We're going to start up along the top at our brake line first, confirming that the fitting and the brake line itself are in good usable order. We'll also make sure we clean and inspect our bracket. Okay, so that brake line and bracket are in good condition. We're continuing down along the strut next. This is where we can see our mounting brackets along this area. Just going to continue on with our wire brush. Both sides of that. We'll just make sure nothing's rotted, weak, or damaged in any way. The flex hose needs to be properly secured. Once you've confirmed all this, we're along the back side of the caliper. We have to make sure we inspect one more area. Now, as we're looking along the back of the caliper, what we're really paying attention for is the area that the flex hose connects onto. What we're paying attention to along the back side of the caliper is directly in the area where the flex hose connects into. We want to make sure we do not have a pre-existing gasket here. You never want to double gasket your braking system. I'm just going to use a small pocket screwdriver. I can see some discoloration here. It looks like it is a seal. Yep. That popped right off of there. We'll dispose of that properly and make sure we clean this port. When we clean the port, we want to make sure no miscellaneous debris makes its way inside. A clean rag will do. We are not using any type of detergent. A thorough inspection. Now we can prepare to install that brand new front brake flex hose. We're going to start with the side that has the threaded end. Now, if you were looking at this, you're going to find that it has a circular port here, but we also have these flat-ended areas. Now that we've shown that, we want to make sure that we have the flat-ended areas facing towards the front and the rear of the vehicle. There's small tabs underneath this bracket that will prevent it from sitting in the wrong positioning. As we bring this over to being in the proper positioning, we're going to start by screwing in our brake line fitting. So for this, I'm gently pressing the flex hose up towards the bracket. We'll continue on by turning this clockwise. We're starting it in by hand, of course. So now I have the line started in. Prior to fully tightening this, I want to make sure that it's secured so it doesn't spin. So we have the flat edges aligned front and rear. We're pressing it straight up towards that bracket, and now we can see a groove along the top of the bracket. That's where our metal clip will sit. We've cleaned our metal clip. Now looking at this, where my fingers are, we have that tab that flips upward here. This is the exact orientation we need it as it slides across the bracket, sliding around our brake flex hose. You could try pressing this in by hand, but you may need to lightly tap it in using a small hammer. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper positioning, go ahead and give it a slight wiggle. We want to confirm it is secured. It should not move around. Now we're going to tighten our brake line fitting up along this area. Now that's snug with my open end wrench. We're just going to continue on with our flare end wrench. Confirm that it's secured. You do not want to have a brake fluid leak here. Just a tiny bit further there. We did not strip anything out. That feels secure, so now we're following this area down towards the brackets on our front strut assembly. If you were looking at our brand new brake flex hose, you're going to find that you have another metal portion in the center of it. Now this also has a groove, and this base area has those two same flat areas. Now on this portion of the flex hose installation, we want to have those flat areas facing out towards the brakes and in towards the engine and transmission. A gentle twist to get this aligned. We're sliding it up and we can see our groove. We've cleaned our metal clip. Same as before, we have the outer lip facing up. Tap it into position as necessary. We'll double check to make sure that's secured. And now we're taking the rest of the flex hose and we're bringing it downward. At this point, you can see the next rubber mount on the flex hose itself. We have a small groove along the center that's going to slide right along this area of the bracket. Line it up, press it in carefully without causing any damage. Double check to make sure that's secured. If it feels like it's a loose fit, you might have an issue with the bracket. You could try squeezing it together, or if you had to, use a wire tie. Either way, this must be secured in all of its mounting points. The next thing we need to do is pay attention to our banjo bolt. If you find that you still have a pre-existing gasket, go ahead and remove it. Let's go ahead and clean this up. Now we're looking at our banjo bolt. We're going to take one of our brand new gaskets and slide it directly on there. We'll continue on taking that banjo bolt and we're going to slide it straight on through our brake flex hose. Install the other new gasket on the other side of the brake flex hose. Now we have a gasket on each side. We'll take this, carefully align it, and start it into the caliper. You don't want to cross thread anything or strip it. Now I have this started in. We'll make sure that we're aligned as we continue on snugging this up. Okay, right there's bottomed out. These gaskets actually need to be gently compressed, so we're going to have to continue tightening this just a little bit further, compressing each one of the two gaskets, preventing any brake fluid leak. There we are, now that's bottomed out. Now that we have this attached and secured, let's continue on to making our way into the passenger compartment. We're going to remove pressure from that brake pedal. Now we're back in the wheel well area here, and we're focusing along the backside of the caliper at our bleeder screw. We're going to open up this bleeder screw. We still have our collection receptacle under here. Now we'll be using our wrench to open up our bleeder screw. We need to wait for a steady trickle of fluid making its way out of here. This is a gravity bleed. Now, as you can tell, we have a steady trickle of fluid making its way out of here. I don't see any air bubbles. We'll go ahead and close this off. After completing a gravity bleed, the next thing you could do is make your way into the passenger compartment. You're going to pump up the brake pedal till it feels firm. Confirm it doesn't feel like it sinks down in any way or feels squishy. If it does, there could potentially still be air trapped in the system. And if that's the case, continue on with a manual brake bleed. Otherwise, go ahead and clean up any mess and reinstall your bleeder screw cover. One last quick inspection in this area, let's install our wheel. We'll start on all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts. Bottom them out. Get the wheel safely on the ground and then torque each of these lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. The wheel's safely on the ground, we're torquing these to that 80 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friends, let's get started on our job. To bleed the brakes on our vehicle, we want to make sure in a safe area to raise and support and remove all wheels. After you've completed that, you're under the hood at the master cylinder. Under the hood at the master cylinder, we're going to make sure we clean around this entire area so no miscellaneous debris makes its way into the braking system. Now the master cylinder is what holds your brake fluid, so of course we're going to remove as much of the original brake fluid as possible. A quick inspection of the cap to make sure it's still in good usable order. Once you have the cap out of the way, you're going to find you have a small screen deep inside this area of the master cylinder. You could either carefully reach in with a gloved finger or use a small angled pick, whatever's easiest for you. Now that we have that out of there, we'll just give that a quick inspection as well. We can set it aside. Now we can start removing as much fluid from inside here as possible. Use a small fluid extraction device. Once you've removed as much fluid as possible from inside of the master cylinder reservoir, go ahead and reinstall your protective screen and top off the master cylinder with your clean DOT3 brake fluid. After you've topped it off, go ahead and temporarily reinstall that brake fluid reservoir cap. Now that we've replaced all the fluid inside the master cylinder and removed all wheels from the vehicle, it's time to start bleeding the brakes, and we're at the driver's side rear first. Once we've completed the driver's side rear, we're going to the passenger's side front. After we've completed that, we're going to have to stop at the master cylinder, up under the hood, so we can top it off with some clean DOT3 brake fluid. Continuing on from that master cylinder, we'll be at the passenger side rear, and then we're ending at the driver's side front. To do this bleed process, it's going to be easiest if you have a second person inside of the vehicle. That second person is going to pump up the brake pedal for us approximately 3 to 5 times and hold it. When they're holding, they're going to let us know, and I'm going to open up my bleeder screw. We know we need an 8mm for our rear bleeder screws here. Go ahead and remove any bleeder screw cover. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal for me. Got a tiny bit of air on that one. Go ahead and pump. Okay, I can tell that I have only clean brake fluid making its way out. The air that I can see in the hose is the air that's just trapped in the hose itself. I'm going to continue on to removing this. We'll clean our mess and reinstall our bleeder screw cover. Reinstall that bleeder screw cover. Now let's move to the passenger side front. Now we're over at the right front. Looking at the brakes here, we have our caliper. We do have a dust boot, so let's just go ahead and remove that protective cover. We're using the 8mm for our front bleeder screws as well. Go ahead and pump up the brake, please. Go ahead and pump. Go ahead and pump. Okay, so we have clean new brake fluid coming from the right front as well. We'll go ahead and remove this, clean any mess. After that, you need to make your way up to the master cylinder. You want to make sure you top it off with that clean .3 brake fluid. Now that we finished those two wheels, we're back at the master cylinder. We're going to top it off with our clean .3 brake fluid. That looks good. Make sure we reinstall the cap. And now here's where you'd continue on to repeating the exact same brake bleeding process. You'd want to make your way to the right rear or passenger side rear. After that, you're going to the driver's side front. Make sure you clean any messes and reinstall your bleeder screw covers. Now at this point, we finished bleeding all brakes. You need to make sure you top off that master cylinder with your clean .3 brake fluid all the way to the maximum line and then reinstall your brake fluid cover. We'll just make sure we clean up any brake fluid from this area. Brake fluid is corrosive and we don't want it on our paint. Now after cleaning all messes, make sure you torque each and every one of your wheel lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Pump up the brake pedal one last time and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.